much in the early stages of all of this. And the book has yet to be written on where we are heading with communication and digital media. And that's the approach we take in our program as well, is that we can reach these conclusions and draw these lessons just as much as anybody else can. If a really powerful, rich company like Google hasn't quite figured out how to make money off YouTube just yet, it also means that everybody's asking the same questions. So we continue to ask those questions here. And I think Lance has a wonderful and optimistic view of it, and I share that view. But there are also other people who will look at Obama's campaign and say, well, he did use these tools, and now we're seeing Republicans beginning to say, well, we've got lots of friends on Facebook and Twitter, we'll do this as well as Obama in the next election. But you also need to look at the mechanics of what he set up and how well he organized things on the ground. It was just a really well-run organization. It just wasn't the digital tools. It was what he was also doing in the analog world that made a big difference. And I think both Kathy and Brett will also talk to that. Ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, we're going to show you. Here's Kathy Gill.
Okay. One comment following up on what Hanson just said. Obama's amazing money-raising machine enabled him to have feet on the ground in key battleground states like Virginia, like no candidate has been able to do before. And because my machine refuses to connect to whatever network might be available in here, I can't give you the data. But I want to say it was, if not an order of magnitude more than what McCain had, it was pretty close. Or maybe it was even bigger than that. Actually it was bigger than that, because that would have been just 10 to 1. I think it was something like 100 Obama people, field offices, to 5 McCain ones. So that counts too. And as much as I would like to say technology is queen or king, technology here is important, but not the only thing, as I think these data will show. How many people in the room don't know what Twitter is? That's willing to admit it. Okay. No. So here's, imagine texting, which is one-to-one and usually one to someone you know, on steroids. One to whomever in a public space accessible on the web, and you pretty much have Twitter. Twitter is a new technology, unlike Facebook, 2 years or so younger than Facebook, and I would call it an edge technology in this campaign, except for those 1 to 3 million cell phone numbers that the Obama people had. They were getting these same messages. Here's the order I'm going to look at how candidates used Twitter in the campaign. The year before he said he started running for president, 2006, I think it was 2006, maybe it was 2007, John Edwards was here at a conference called Noondex, and he stood up in front of a room of geeks and said, you know, the person who wins this election is going to be the person that people feel connected to. It will be the politician who can manage to step out of sound bites and out of this distancing thing that we have to protect ourselves from gaffes and feel like a real person. And John Edwards was the first candidate to use Twitter. He started using Twitter in January of 2007. Twitter was not a year old then. And yet if you look at followers and following, so followers are the people who have signed up to get your tweets, your text messages. Following are the people that you are getting their messages. Edwards, yeah, not so good. But interestingly enough, still better than Clinton. Not surprising, better than McCain. Obama started later in 2007, March, I think. And then Clinton started, and then McCain started for the 2 months after the convention. So given that he started the 2 months after the convention, that wasn't bad, was it? Notice that Clinton's following line is 0. So Clinton's people, Clinton's campaign, said, This is going to be one-way communication, and we are not going to pretend otherwise. Obama probably had something called an auto-follow. So if people followed him, he followed them, and it makes it look like you want to engage in a conversation. Because this space is personal. One of the reasons it's personal is because it's based on this, an incredibly personal device. We carry it in our purses, we carry it in our pockets, we carry it on a thing on our belt. You know, it's ours, it's personal. So Edwards, you see January through November, so Edwards didn't even use Twitter to tell people that he was dropping out of the campaign, which I thought was sad. Obama stopped the day after the campaign. We'll talk about that in a moment. Clinton started, she started when like the stuff really kicked off in 2008, and here's McCain with his 2 months after the primary, after the convention. So how did they do this? Edwards is the only one of the candidates who used the traditional mechanism. He sent texts. He sent text. Obama, all of the posts are from the web, and I will show you a couple, and I challenge you to believe that they actually came from Obama, but he did come from his campaign. Clinton, all the posts from the web, sounds like it might have been her, some of them. And McCain, again, no pretension on getting into a conversation, all from Twitter feed. So this is a wire service for your tweets, right? You're just broadcasting. You're narrowcasting, but you're casting. What was the style used? I just started some content analysis on this, and it's just fascinating. Edwards practiced what he preached at that conference. His tweets are personal. They're filled with adjectives, they're filled with feeling and emoting. But that wasn't enough to get him the nomination. It wasn't even enough to get him to stay in, right, very long in that nomination process. Obama's tweets, thank you very much, ma'am, just the facts, pretty much, where am I today? And then later in the campaign, where am I today and how can you watch? Piggybacking on Lance's point about the importance of seeing that speech or being able to see that speech if you wanted to. Clinton, I think because she was so criticized as, quote, not getting this technology, right? I mean, that was the meme. Clinton doesn't get it, Clinton doesn't get it. Her posts are like Edwards. Not quite as effusive as his, but they're personal. They're filled with I. So if she's not writing them, that's pretty bad. If a staff person is writing something that says I. Now, Edwards, it was really clear, there was a parentheses, staff, parentheses, when a post was not from Edwards. From Clinton, you shift tenses. It's, you know, she is, not I am. And then McCain, like I said, it was just a feed. It was just a feed. Here are a couple of examples of Edwards' posts. The first one I pulled because it's straight out of the Howard Dean playbook. I will do something if you all ask me to. And that probably came from Joe Trippi, who advised both campaigns. I don't remember when he started working on the Edwards campaign. But the technique that was used by Edwards piggybacked on the Howard Dean campaign because Dean was the first group, the first campaign organization, where when there was a blog post and someone commented on it, someone from the campaign, like Joe Trippi or occasionally Howard Dean, would answer it. And this really made people who were interested in that candidacy more interested because it felt like a connection. That said, not a single one of these candidates ever posted with an @ sign. So for those of you who are Twitter speakers, you know what I'm saying. Those of you who don't know, let me say this. They never replied to anybody. Their ears were closed. All they did was talk. So here are examples from Clinton to demonstrate my point about, I think, you know, I think she was trying to appear human. There was this, all of that negative commentary about how distant she was and so forth. She didn't get the technology. And then this last thing, she thanked the states. It was, maybe it's because I'm another woman, but her thanks felt like they were real, and there were a couple of kind of thanks from the Obama stuff, but it felt like it was an intern writing it. So here's Obama, clearly the leader, 262 posts. 201, where am I today? So it's an advert. I am in Indiana, I'm in Florida, I am in Pennsylvania, I am giving a talk today about dot and dot. That's it, just an advert. 27 of the posts were calls to action. Many of those were, you know, get out and vote. Get your friends to go with you to vote today, whether it was a primary or whether it was the general election. 24 posts were what I called announcements. We are launching a. We have a contest for. Okay? And then 13 posts expressed some sort of humanity. This does fit, though, with this persona of Obama as being very controlled, not emotional. He was perceived as being a little cool at the beginning, and that, of course, turned to his advantage as the economy went into the tank, that he seemed very stable. Here are my examples from Obama. So the first one is an example of an announcement, and the second one is an example of a combination. Here's where I am, and oh, by the way, you know, vote. Almost all of them that have a call to action included a link to the website, most of them to a fairly high-level part of the website, but as the campaign progressed, they seemed to get better at giving you a direct link. So if they wanted you to go to a video, they give you the link to the video and not the link to, you know, BarackObama.com. Also, once Hillary conceded, once June got passed, that's when the watch this recording started. I don't know, I can't believe that that was the cause. There must have been something else going on in terms of technology that made it easier for them to be broadcasting all these videos. This is my question for you all. If most of the communications that were coming from the Obama campaign, number one, had nothing to do with you because you didn't live in that state. Number two, were basically glorified one-way advertisements. Why did people sign up? Why would you want to be getting these tweets either to your phone or to your Twitter account when they are what I would call pretty impersonal in a conversation space that prides itself on its sociability with real people? That's mine to you. My last slide is just the credit slide. So.